Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here in Washington, D.C. at the home of Sweden's ambassador to the United States on this, the 10th anniversary year of the Nordic Defense Cooperation Agreement that brought together Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland into a cooperative federation. And we're honored to have with us Janne Kuusela, who is the Director General of for Policy at Finland's Ministry of Defense. Janne, great to see you.
Great to see you. Yeah.
It was a pleasure, a fantastic event at the Atlantic Council earlier today, which was one of the ways that everybody, all the policy directors from all the nations were there, along with the military chairman of the NORDEFCO Commission, Major General Michael Claesson. Tell us first, Sweden and Norway both have hosted major military exercises. The Swedes had Aurora, obviously, and Sweden and Finland are EU nations, whereas Norway just hosted the massive Trident Juncture exercises, but Sweden and Finland participated in those. How soon before Finland hosts another major exercise that it plays host country to, with a lot of NATO nations that participate in it, for example?
That will take place in 2021, and the exercise will be called Arctic Lock. And actually, this week we have sent out the invitations for the countries we would like to see in this exercise. And it's going to be attached to us our major national exercise that year. And we are hoping to see our main partners participating. And that, of course, besides having the Nordic partners participate, we want to see countries like US, UK, Poland, Germany, to consider participation in this exercise, and we will do our share to promote interoperability in Northeastern Europe with our main partners.
On this 10th anniversary year, Sweden has the chairmanship in NORDEFCO. What are some of the priority issues from a Finnish perspective, that are on the to-do list? I mean, from a Finnish perspective, on that list of 16 things in the 2025 plan, what are sort of the most priority issues from Helsinki's perspective?
Well, I think we subscribe to all of these objectives. We have drafted them together, and we have singled out that these 16 concrete objectives matter a lot for all of us. If I point out, for example, one which is very important for us is the security of supply. Finland being in the northeastern corner of Europe, militarily security of supply is a major issue, and there's a lot we can do in the Nordic family to be better in that and make us more secure in the times of crisis or conflict. Also, the cooperation across the Atlantic is very important for us, and that's why we are here as a group to find new ways to work more with the US. But also the other issues on that Nordic vision, they are all on our priorities list to do. And it's a challenging task to get them all done, but I think we are gathering speed, and we usually get things done when we get at it.
One of the interesting things is everybody is looking at stepping up their high-end defense game. We heard that from General Claesson, said like, hey, look, we've got to take this to the next level. With the end of the Cold War, everybody stepped down. But actually Finland didn't. Finland actually maintained a lot of its footing. Not quite the same as it was during the Cold War, but still maintained a lot of capability. How are you stepping up your capabilities as a country that didn't drop as far down as some of your partners and friends?
Yes, you are right. We didn't step down our guard on a territorial defense, and today we have, in our wartime strength, 280,000 troops, which is big in European scale, and they are all equipped with modern equipment. And what we have been doing lately is, first of all, focusing on cutting-edge technologies and the key capabilities, including precision-guided, far-reaching munitions, cyber defenses, and joint capabilities, C4I, for example. Another major issue we have been doing the past years is readiness, and most of all for our biggest service being land forces. Our Navy and Air Force have always been readiness forces, but we have had to do many things to make sure that we can be effective in calling up our reserves and ramping up our wartime defenses in a speedy manner. And that has also entailed lots of work in our parliament. We have pushed through our parliament during the past years biggest ever legislative package since the Second World War to make us more effective in readiness.
Russia has been your neighbor for millennia, for many, many, many centuries, and Finns pride themselves on being independent, but also being able to really understand, communicate with, but also deter when necessary and win when necessary. God forbid if there is a conflict. What's the best way to understand Russia, understand its thinking? Because unless you understand Russia, it's very hard to deter Russia. What's sort of a Finnish guide for everybody else to sort of better understand Russia?
Well, if you want to take up one thing, I would say is you need to have a dialogue. Even though you don't agree always on things, even though situation may be tense and there's lots of bad air, you need to have dialogue, and that's the only way to really understand how the other side thinks about and approaches things, and then you can rethink your own approaches and to have a kind of better understanding of the situation.
Russia, though, if you look at it from Moscow's perspective, has been extremely active in disinformation campaigns across Europe. And virtually every government has felt the sting of Russia's very, very sophisticated tactics, whether it's in cyber operations, whether it's been, again, outright lying, fabricated stories, things that spread on social media. What's kind of a Finnish approach that you think that the alliance that any country can use at a time when everybody is trying to fight fake news, fight disinformation, at a time when social media will allow a completely absurd idea to spread all around the world, and then it creates its own narrative, and then democratic countries are forced to try to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it's very hard to do.
Well, I will give you three things which we want to keep strong in Finland, and one is education. That's a key. The Finns, also the future generations, need to understand the bigger picture, the context, and they need to understand what they hear and read, see in the news, and that's why we invest so much in education in Finland. For example, Finland turned 100 years just a while ago, and we decided to create something for the Finnish society to celebrate that event, and what we ended up doing was a new library for Helsinki to promote people reading also something else than only daily newspapers. And that brings me to the second stronghold, which is free and vibrant press and media, which we want to keep that way in Finland, and high level of journalism and the freedom of speech. Third one is that whenever we face aggressive information campaigns or misinformation, our response is that we don't go down that spiral of arguing about things. We just want to bring out our own positive narrative of how we see things around us and how we see things developing in Finnish society.
Let me ask you two last questions. One is, last year Finland in September raided a vast series of what can only be described as private homes that seemed to have an ulterior purpose. They were homes that were on the water, they were in the countryside, they were in some very remote places, but instead of having a dock for 2 boats, it had a dock for 9 boats, command and control systems that were installed there. Obviously, a lot of the speculation was that these were sort of Russian hybrid installations that could be used in potential time of conflict. What can you tell us about what those bases were, what their purpose was, and have you gotten to the bottom of it and spread the message out to all the other nations in the region, whether it's Sweden, Denmark, and even Norway, to sort of be aware as to what's going on?
Well, that was a pattern we have been following for quite some time, and now it was time to intervene, and you are prevailing to a major law enforcement operation we had where many different authorities were doing a joint operation to find out really what's going on. The investigation is still ongoing, so I can't go into details on that, but of course we do always share situational information and awareness with our neighbors. We just passed last week a new legislation which allows our authorities better ways and means to act when we think that our critical infrastructure is being challenged by foreign actors, and now we can really effectively intervene and prohibit land buys or buying of infrastructure in critically important places in Finland.
Can you confirm that those were not private homes and that they were something other than private homes?
The investigation is still ongoing, but I think I would say that the raid was not in vain.
Let me take you to one last question. Next year is going to be, Finland will have the EU presidency, and at the Atlantic Council event, you said that Finland's focus is to make AI one of its priority issues during its tenure. Talk to us about how everybody needs to think not just about AI, but about cyber and about 5G, given that those are things that Finland historically has had a strength in, given the power of its telecommunications industry and computing industries historically.
Yes, we call this subject matter artificial intelligence and digitalization in security and defense solutions. And you mentioned the telecommunications networks, 5G technologies for future generations, a cutting edge advantage with many vulnerabilities, and whatever platforms we are operating, they are based on networks, and we need to make sure that they stay clean and functionable. And that's something we need to talk across the borders. We need to have these coordination and debates in Europe, and we need to have them across the Atlantic. With basically all the partners, we are prepared to work together in the times of crisis. So that's one thing. And then the artificial intelligence is the other. It's something that most of our nations are now trying to get the grasp on and deal with nationally. And we think it merits really have a deep look across the nations and to see how we can pool our resources and get a better understanding, and how can we focus our attention to right things. It's not only about finding the right solutions. They're usually dual use. They are civilian side innovations that you need to apply for your defenses. There's also the other side, like how do you want to approach the international rules and regulations, what comes for automated weapon systems and so on. Bearing in mind that there are many other tracks who are considering the same thing. For example, under the UN auspices, there is a process looking at this issue in Geneva, so we need to bear this in mind. But I think there's a lot we can do in Europe and across the Atlantic on this issue.
And one last question. On the Finland is looking for a new fighter aircraft. Obviously, the F-18 has served the country very, very well, but is getting old and you want a replacement. Does the F-35, because of the importance of the transatlantic link to Finland and the unique capabilities of the F-35, does the F-35 have an advantage in this upcoming competition?
Right now we have 5 competing platforms for this fighter aircraft replacement, and we have gotten the offers, and we are now at this stage carefully analyzing and how they respond to our requirements, which are quite specific, taking into consideration our location and geography and climate and all that. And we will do a thorough examination and to make sure that we will get the best possible capacity for Finland to defend ourselves.
Janne Kuusela, the Policy Chief for Finland's Ministry of Defense, sir. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for all of your time.
Thank you.